Hi, I'm Nick Gillespie with Reason TV. Today we're talking with William Binney. He was a longtime NSA employee who quit the service, the National Security Agency, shortly after the 9/11 attacks when he was acting as technical leader for intelligence. He's kind of like Edward Snowden 1.0.
I mean, after all, there's so many laws in this country that you can find some law you're breaking. Right. So if they want to come after you, then they've got a pretext now because they've got everything you've ever done recorded.
And I mean, let's be, and this might just be the Cold Warrior, America's #1 and me fanboy going, but we're doing it better than the Soviet Union or the Stasi ever did, right?
We're doing better in terms of collecting amounts of data so that you can individually target people if you want to. Right. We're not doing very good at stopping terrorist attacks, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how is that then? I mean, if the government is capable of surveilling basically everything everybody is doing, how does that not lead to stopping every possible terrorist act?
Because fundamentally they have to do it manually. That's what the White House Big Data Initiative was about a year and a half ago. That initiative was soliciting private industry to come up with algorithms to go through big data sets and find important material in there and tell them what is important in that data, because otherwise they're reduced. Like right now, they have to do it manually to a certain degree, which means they're limited in the capacity. So if you draw the analogy on this needle in the haystack, well, if you're looking for that needle, it doesn't help at all to make the haystack orders of magnitude bigger. It only makes the problem orders of magnitude harder to find it. And that's why they're fundamentally failing. They're causing themselves to become dysfunctional.
But you also argue essentially that that's kind of the point, that they want to have a bigger and bigger haystack because that's where their empire, that's where their power is, not really in actually finding the needles.
That's right. Yeah. That's the real problem. That's why I had to leave there, because it was all built on corruption.
Well, so now you are a whistleblower. You went through, you and your colleagues went through official channels. Was that a wise decision?
Well, since I always viewed the United States as we the guys who had the white hats, I thought, gee, well, if the people downtown and different congressional committees knew about this, they would start to fulfill their oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution, and would do the right thing. And if not there, then perhaps through the IGs and so on, or through the courts, we could get that done. So we kept trying for the better part of 7 years to make that known, to try to get the government to start to address some of its criminal activity.
Right.
But instead, they went the other way, and they to the dark side, basically doing retroactive immunity for the crimes for the telecoms, the crimes that they were committing, and basically keeping everything else secret so nobody could show anything in court. So it was done with a secret court, under secret interpretations of laws and so on. I mean, this is all a secret government.
Talk a little bit about the telecommunications companies, which were handing over data to the government, and then they were given immunity because most of them had terms of service where they weren't supposed to be doing that. Do they really have a choice in any of that? I mean, if the government says, I mean, what are the options?
Well, the options were to say, give me a written warrant, then I'll fulfill the warrant.
Right.
That's what the CEO of Quest did.
Right.
Of course, now he's in jail. I mean, they targeted him. So, you see, if you don't do what the government wants, they can target you. So,
well, let's talk about Edward Snowden, because he, and there's a host of questions, because he is clearly building on, on the actions, or he learned from your experience and people like you experience. Was he wise not to go through official channels?
We were a clear demonstration that official channels didn't work. I mean, they just simply don't work.
Right.
I mean, if you do like we did, or like Tom Drake did, they attempted to indict us 3 separate times during the period 2007 to 2009. So, but they failed because we had exculpatory data, and we actually were threatening them with malicious prosecution if they tried that. So they dropped everything on us. But they didn't. They still had Tom Drake, and they
and explain who he is and how he
was still a senior executive at NSA and was still working for the agency at the time in 2007, He was raided 4 months after we were, so he was a supporter of the Thin Thread program too, and also, but he talked to Siobhan Gorman in the Baltimore Sun about some of the corruption and waste and fraud.
And that was considered leaking of sensitive material.
That's what NSA considered it.
Right.
However,
yes.
if you take the strict reading of Executive Order 13526, Section 1.7, which is the executive order covering classification for the U.S. government, you cannot cover up a crime, fraud, waste, or abuse by classification.
So,
so it's not really.
Right, right. And that's on a certain level, you're hoping that's what you get to
that would
defend
be argued
in
a court. Yeah. Right.
So, Edward Snowden, you've been critical in some of your discussions of what he's doing. You think that he has absolutely provided a public service in bringing to light in a way that is unescapable, particularly the Verizon warrant, or rather the order for Verizon that's come to light in over the past year. You are critical that when he starts talking about how the U.S. is surveilling other foreign countries, that that might not actually be very useful. Is that right?
Yes. For example, the back doors and things like that in different systems. The fact that it's happening, I mean, I think every country in the world tries to do this. And they try to market products with their companies around the world with these back doors in them. So I mean, it's not...
and by back door, I mean, essentially that's a way where a particular country intelligence service can basically skip into whatever somebody's doing using a particular piece of hardware or software.
Right, because of implanted software that would allow them to manipulate
and everybody's
those
doing
devices.
that. And so and essentially, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is that you are not anti-NSA. You are anti the way NSA, or the way that surveillance and intelligence is being gathered now.
Yes, because they moved away from targeting the groups that were doing bad things, or militaries, or governments, things like that, into collecting information on every individual in the world.
Right.
I mean, when you do that, not only do you make yourself dysfunctional because of the volume of information, but you're also creating this totalitarian process and spreading it around the world, which is infecting all the democracies.
Here, I mean, you started at the NSA in 1970
as a civilian.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
So throughout over the course of the 70s and during the Church Commission hearings and various other hearings about things, we learned that the NSA had actually illegally been opening all sorts of mails, telegrams, communications, listening in, on hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of communications. Why would you be surprised that they are, suddenly the NSA, once it can gather data on everybody, that it would start to do that? I mean, it seems kind of naive on your part, isn't it?
Well, no, actually, if you stick with the charter of NSA, it's to do foreign intelligence. That's not foreign, that's domestic.
Right.
So right up front, that doesn't meet the charter.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's pointless to do that because those aren't real threats.
Right.
I mean, the real threats were at the time in the Cold War. It was the Soviet Union, the main one, and China, and so on. Those were the opposing militaries and major threats in the world.